Hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. On the path to revenge, remember to dig 2 graves. I didn't decide to watch today's film on as a planned event, but I don't know. I was struggling to decide, and I thought I would go for something simple, light, and then I thought, no, I want something a little bit to get my teeth into. And quite by chance, tonight's film was one that was actually going to be leaving Netflix by the end of the week, and so I thought I should finally sit down and watch American History X. Yeah, this is definitely one of those infamous films that you don't go in with a light mood and come out feeling the same way. In fact, no matter what mood you're in, you're definitely going to be in a certain state of mind coming out, because this is a heavy film. It's funny, really, because I, for some reason, kept thinking about Requiem for a Dream while I was watching this. And I love Requiem for a Dream. I genuinely think it's one of the greatest films ever made. But it is one of my I will never watch this again films. And the parallel I suppose I drew was the fact that at no point, I can say with a great deal of confidence, have I ever wanted to try heroin or indulge in the life of heroin addicts. And yet, Requiem for a Dream reinforced that to such a degree that if I was at 0 in terms of interest, I am now at a minus 100. Similarly, at no point have I ever had an interest in neo-Nazism, in white supremacy, for somewhat obvious reasons, but watching American History X, it really does make you just despair at even the idea that people would live this kind of lifestyle. And yet it finds these really interesting, in-depth ways to allow you to understand the mindset of someone who's gone down this path, and how they go down the path, and yet how they can come back from it. I mean, this definitely has that sort of artistry to it that would make someone believe that this was based on a novel or a stage play. That there's something about it that, I don't know, there's a certain language and style and staging of it that is more than just an informative film. And of course, the great achievements in cinema are the moments when you're feeling like you're watching something greater, watching something that's heightened the cinema art form, whilst also still being relatable. There are definitely high art films, but they're not always necessarily a relatable, something that we can connect to and learn from and discuss and consider. So to do both in one film, again, it is of great achievement, and Tony Kaye has definitely, there's just something about the way he manages to create this sense of just unrelenting grimness, and yet within it, you just find those moments of humanity, although those moments of reason, and yet still you're buried in the despair of it. And as I like to talk about frequently in my videos, the fatale aspect of it, the idea that there is a sense of foreboding, an ominous sense of, the fates of these characters has been decided, the die has been cast, and it is not going to end well in some capacity. The toll must be paid. And yet, like I say, there's something human about it. You get that sense of, it opens with, Edward Norton in a flashback. And of course it does that thing where when it's in present day, it's in colour. When it's flashing back to before, Edward Norton's character went to prison, it's in black and white. And it's funny, really, because when you have that opening scene, the opening scene feels more artistic. It feels more like, I don't know, something like Antichrist, like a Lars von Trier, where he's trying to paint this beautiful, tragic imagery using music and repeated motifs, where dialogue is almost unnecessary, and yet you do have a little bit to establish who people are, and there's this terrible sense of misery where, and I suppose the intention is to create that sense of, surely, from my perspective as a reasonable, rational person, my instinct is to go, well, these people everything must be so bleak through their perspectives. So, even to it opens with Edward Norton's character, Dennis. Sorry, I'm probably going to get the two brothers' names mixed up, because they, what Tony Kaye goes for is to have everyone in the family's name begin with a D. So you have Dennis, and then his mother Doris, his sister Davina, and then the younger brother whose name Derek, I want to say, and I'm not sure if Derek and Dennis, I'm getting them mixed up, but you can see where the confusion lies. And of course, what's not helped by is that they are played by Edward Norton, who of course plays the older brother, and Edward Furlong. So I can't even rely on just saying Edward to sort of fall back on. But like I say, that opening sequence just has this...
Edward Norton is Derek.
Derek. There we go. Edward Norton is Derek. Edward Furlong is Dennis. And you get that sense of, I don't know, melancholy and despair and grimness, and the way you perceive it. Even the film opens with Derek making love to his girlfriend, and even that, I don't know, is portrayed in such a grim, miserable way, as if everything is just tinged with this sense of misery. And of course, my assumption is this to do with the bigotry, and that all of this misery lies within, the fact that how can you be this kind of like neo-Nazi and not just be full of, hate and despair and see everything in black and white. And then the brilliance of the film is that it unpacks that, and it says, people aren't born like this, and we're going to, as a film, explore how someone goes down that path and how it forms them, and the sense of tragedy and the sense of almost like infection, how the knock-on effects it has on family, brother to brother, father to son, brother to brother. There's just this pervasive sense of it slipping in where it can, from minor aggressions, microaggressions, to full-on hate and hate-fueled abuse. And of course, the problem is, you have Edward Norton, and the nature of his character is one who is, he's not just, he even has the arrogance to say, oh, we're not, he criticises the KKK for being redneck, hicks, because he sees himself as being this rationalist who reasons for why, white supremacy must, be the right way, and how he fights the argument, and he'll sit round the table with a Jewish man, who's dating his mother, and try to argue for why he is right, and you can see why sort of he draws people to him, and how the big sort of, because the nature of it is that there is, when he argues and when he speaks to his to his group, and is trying to G everyone up and tries to sort of politicize and unify them, he's using truthful statements, he's using reasoned arguments. It's just misplaced and confused arguments that actually are. So, for instance, it's the fact that he blames non-white communities and immigrant communities, for you know, a degradation within sort of community, a rise in crime, you know, the sort of destruction of you know, small business, and he lays it all at the feet of that. And the way the film portrays it, and you know, it doesn't try to pretend that that's entirely like wrong. You know, that he's completely, it's in his mind. You know, you do get the sense of where they live is run down. You know, there's you know, crime and gang culture, but the point is the way that these two things are conflated. You know, that, you know, poverty and crime and gang culture have nothing to do with the racial relationship of these different groups, and that he's just simply fixated on it and using it as a, you know, as a beacon to people who think like him. At which point you get these horrifying, truly horrifying acts of violence perpetrated against people. And you know, I mean, famously, of course, you have the curb stomping scene, and it is horrible. It is genuinely traumatizing. But then you also have, and I don't think it's spoken about much, the convenience store attack, where him and his group attack a convenience store, and more than harass, they abuse the people there, both customers and people who work there, and the way that they one woman that they sort of assault her is degrading and humiliating, and it is horrible. It's genuinely horrible. And then, of course, you cut to the present day, where he's gotten out of prison and he's desperately trying to put it behind him. You know, he's desperately trying to get his brother out from that lifestyle, and that he, you know, it's hard to initially sort of work out exactly what's happened with him, but he's turned a corner, and you see the difference in him, and you're trying to sort of piece together, well, is this sincere? Is this something that he'll backslide? But you get that sense of, oh, we're seeing two paths in this. You know, the path to the bottom, and then the path up from the bottom. You know, and how someone can try and sort of repair themselves and escape, and you know, and you have characters like Avery Brooke, who plays the principal, who is trying to help both these brothers, and he is fighting their corner, even though they're both huge racists, and he's a black man. He's desperately trying to save them, and there's something about sort of his presence and the way that he sort of tries to relate to these boys, or you know, in the both flashbacks and in the present day, and again the sort of the tragedy of it, and the sense of, oh, is there hope? Is he fighting a losing battle? Is this pointless? Is this an act of futility? And I have to say, Edward Furlong, you know, of course, Edward Furlong famously, who played John Connor in Terminator 2, whose career I can't say I've ever had a great deal of knowledge of, but genuinely, you know, this is a tremendous performance from him. You know, playing this younger brother who, you know, he's essentially the narrator of the story, and he's the one who sort of, quote unquote, whose soul is trying, you know, who Edward Norton is trying to save, and you can see him, you know, that everything that he's doing is the love of his brother, and the ideologies he's taken on were almost in the absence of his brother whilst he was in prison. You know, and you can see him going down the same route that Edward Norton went down, because it also pays back to the fact that their father was killed and shot by a gang member, a black gang member, and of course that's what sent Edward Norton down the path he went down. And then, of course, Edward Furlong similarly is going down that path because Edward Norton went to prison, and he, you know, of course, that anger that lives inside him. But I think that's sort of the core, the thesis. If this is a thesis-based film, the idea of anger and holding anger in your heart and the ways that it creates bigotry and you channels your hate, because, you know, that's the great tragedy of this film, is the idea of sort of the placement of hatred, and how different people will, you know, or anger, maybe the placement of anger, and the way that different people depending on their personalities, on their experiences, the way that they will place this and use it. And it's only in the moments of goodness, for instance, Derek's prison friend, who slowly, over the years that he spends in prison, helps him, whittles him down. And again, as a black character, the idea of this guy who doesn't desperately try and fix or help this Nazi, but he tries to just be himself and relate to the guy, and they have to work together in the laundrette, and you get that sense of slowly, piece by piece, you see someone's mind change. And of course the other stuff that happens in the prison, again, horrifying. This is definitely a film that's intentionally doesn't hold off on depicting horrific things, and that's the point. It's the point that you need to see the horror to kind of get to the sense of the path of reparation and the path of, well, can someone come back from all the horror? No, this is genuinely a great film, genuinely a really important film. I mean, Edward Norton, I've always felt harsh on Edward Norton, because it's not that I don't rate him as an actor. I mean, I really liked him in Fight Club. He's someone who, when I see, I think he's a good actor, but I'm also aware that he's very invested in the creative process, more so than an actor should probably be in all the projects he gets involved with. So, and sometimes you sort of want to make the argument, well, an actor's role is to act, not to step outside of that. Just focus on your acting. Don't worry about the story and everything beyond that. But I do think, the approach he brings to this character and the layers and the complexity, this is the performance where I go, oh, I see it now. I really see it, because you can see so much going on, so much pathos and grief and rage, and the different ways that it's represented. And even the tender moments of love and affection and genuinely trying to sort of find yourself as a person are all contained within his performance. And I genuinely think this is a really good film. And again, in the times that we live, and sort of the way, the last couple of years now, how we've seen things like this, I do think it's a really important, informative piece of film literature that helps you sort of, evaluate how one approach. The idea of this film isn't that anyone can go down this path. It's not, as I say, people aren't born feeling the way they feel, but anyone can go down this path and go deep in this path. But again, anyone can come back from it. And there are costs, and like I say, there is a sense of tragedy to it. But again, it's trying to say something. I got a real Do the Right Thing struck, because again, the visuals do remind me of Do the Right Thing in some respects. And you get that sense of, the answers aren't easy, and the film doesn't leave you with easy answers, but it leaves you with enough material to think about and to consider and to go, this is a really good conversation piece, as well as being a beautiful film. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video and comment below, because it's all helping the algorithm. Check out my back catalogue of over 200 videos, and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about films and TV shows, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.